Thank you, Rob. We really appreciate Aon's support, and I am delighted to be here today to have a conversation on safety from the C-suite, stories, lessons, and best practices. I am joined by two icons of Wisconsin business, Tom Bolt and Kim Bassett. We are going to have a conversation about safety. Both of our participants today are recipients of the Hall of Fame Award. Kim is the most recent recipient. In fact, I was here about a year ago. One of my last trips before the COVID lockdown was to deliver and hand that award to you. So we're delighted to be back. I noticed your flag flying out front of the building as I pulled up. That's great. One of the things that you get when you win a corporate safety award is a beautiful green flag that shows that you are a corporate safety winner. And Tom, you've won multiple corporate safety awards. You're a recipient as well of the Hall of Fame. You're also somebody that I consider to be one of the smartest people in the business, and the reason is of course you were on the search committee that hired me for my job at WMC. So,
okay.
So Kim, this is we're in your facility. Well, let's start with you. Talk a little bit about your background personally, and talk about Bassett Mechanical.
Yeah. So Kim Bassett, Bassett Mechanical. I'm president and CEO. And we're an 85-year-old business this year. So we were founded back in 1936. I'm third generation of the family-owned business. And we do everything from design and engineering to fabrication, installation, and then services for a multitude of industries. And the offerings that we bring include industrial refrigeration, HVAC, plumbing, piping, controls, metal fabrication, and then proactive preventative maintenance. And so we're here today in our 268,000 square foot facility, and this is our corporate headquarters. And we also have service operations in Madison, Milwaukee, and Wausau.
And how long have you been involved with Bassett?
So I grew up with the business, of course, but then I came in as a career in late 1996.
And you started, I believe, in sales, did you not?
I did.
Had a chance to kind of work your way around the company?
Yeah, I had a great opportunity to expose myself to a variety of positions here at the company. So I did sales management, worked alongside our tradesmen, both in the shop and in the field, which was an invaluable experience. And did a variety of other things, project management, estimating. So it really gave me a good broad breadth and depth of the business before I started taking more management roles.
And you're also on the WMC board.
I am.
So
I'm a new member.
Pleased about that, relatively new. So, and speaking of the WMC board, you're a past chair of WMC, indicated you were on the search committee that hired me. And of course, you've got a legacy family business as well. What generation are Bolt now are you running the company?
Well, I'm the fourth generation. I have a son who's working for us out in Washington, D.C. He's the fifth generation,
Wow.
Although he's going to be going to law school this fall, so I'm not sure whether his career path will mean that he ends up at Bolt. And there were no expectations from me and from my dad. There were no expectations that I would get into the business, but that's how a rather circuitous career path led me to our company.
And talk about that. Talk about
sure.
how did you follow Kim's approach?
Well, maybe a little different. Our company is 132 years old this year, and we have 14 different offices throughout the United States. My career path, I never thought I was going to be in the business, and like him, when you're in a family business and a family, you're talking business all the time. So when somebody asks, how long have you been in the business? I said, gee, how old am I? And I would say those types of things, which is actually really a very, very positive thing. I thought I was going to be in education, and my career path was going in that particular direction. When I was from Europe, I had worked in Europe for a couple of years. There were some opportunities to do some marketing, and we wrote a corporate brochure that I was involved in, and sort of the public relations marketing aspect of the company. I had done such a great job in that my dad sent me to Saudi Arabia, where I worked on a construction project in Riyadh, and that's where I think I learned a lot of the business in working on that project. And primarily I was in logistics, and I remember in Saudi Arabia, everything shut down on a Wednesday, And our we would work on the project managers. I need some timbers for some cribbing for a large piece of equipment. And I said to him, he said, where do you expect me to find this? Everything's shut down. And he pointed out to the desert and he said, it's out there. And by the timbers, and I thought that was a really great lesson, is that if you persevere and you keep working at it, eventually you're going to find the solution to that. But like Kim's business, we're involved in a lot of different industries, healthcare, food manufacturing, and automotive. And like I said, numerous offices. We have about 550 salaried employees. We're a union company, and we have, depending on the day of the week, anywhere between 1,500 and 2,100 union staff that are working out in the field throughout the country.
Let's not forget that your team did the remodel of our building at 501 East Washington. Did a great job. So
thank you.
We appreciate that.
Yeah.
So let's get into it and talk a little bit about safety. So both of you are in the Hall of Fame. Both of you are multiple recipients of the Corporate Safety Awards. Let's talk about the culture, because I've had the honor of delivering these flags on site to recipients of the Corporate Safety Award. And I always make the point of saying that, this isn't for that year. They'll often say, well, we got it for 2019, we got it for whatever the year. No, there's more to it than that, because you might have been lucky. And that's not what we're looking for in safety. We're looking for a culture that protects employees. So talk a little bit about what it takes to be best in class in safety. So Kim, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so safety is one of our 6 core values. So safety is embedded in everything that we do, from the discussions that we have to start out a meeting with a safety topic to communications and everything. And it's really permeates through where we see something, say something. So the culture here at Bassett Mechanical is that everybody has a voice and they're empowered to use that voice. And so we ask people to watch out for themselves. If they're not comfortable in any situation, please stop, call the safety director, talk to the customer, find a safe way to do it. But you by no means are expected to do something that would put you or anyone else at risk. We also ask them to watch out for each other. So coworkers out on the shop floor, if you see a customer that's doing something unsafely, please say something. And so that's really the culture that we have here, is that people need to look out for each other. They need to look out for themselves. Safety is an imperative, and it's a non-negotiable. And so that's really, truly how we live our everyday.
Tom, same question to you. Talk about the culture. So a manufacturer, construction site, and what's I think unique for construction is that your team could be on doing a hospital in somewhere in America, and then they're working on a totally different project, a different job site.
Right.
That in itself poses a unique challenge.
Sure, right. Well, like Kim, I think that you have to set the tone, and the tone certainly comes from the top. What are the expectations of the organization? What are the expectations of each particular office? What's the expectation of each particular site? And then it gets down to each particular supervisor, foreman, and then back to the individual. And we're constantly talking about safety. One of the things that I've seen that has been really important in our business has been the emphasis that our customers are now placing on safety and on the sites, which I think is a shift from what we've seen maybe in the last 10 years or so. And when your client is saying, these are my expectations, that helps us to get to the workforce and say, look, you're here because the customer is expecting a safe worksite not only for you, but their people. So we start meetings with a safety topic, and it's interesting to see how that has caught on with our employees. And I think if you can create a situation where you are caring about your employees in a very meaningful way, that goes a long way to say, we're having a conversation here, one-on-one. I am concerned about you. I hope that you're concerned about me. Let's talk about the work that's going to happen today and the opportunities that may present themselves, that you might be in line of fire or some type of a situation that could create a safety moment or lack of safety moment that we need to talk about. And if more engagement and closer to the people that are actually doing the work, I think, is a really important aspect of it. And I think one of the other nuances is in working throughout the country, I think we're very fortunate in Wisconsin to have a very strong work ethic as well as a safety ethic. As you get in other parts of the country, you don't necessarily see that. And so there's another higher level of responsibility to work with people that you never worked with before. And I think there's always do they really mean this? Are they really saying that I should speak up and talk about that? And we had a project down in the Southeast last year where somebody had some issues with the heat. And we said, why didn't you talk to us about it? He said, well, the last job I had, they'd fire me if I did. So you go from some extremes where people are not allowed to speak to another organization that we want you to talk about, we want you to be, and we have a number of techniques in place to encourage people to speak up and talk about safety on the job.
I like that term, safety ethic, and it's all about not taking shortcuts, not cutting corners. Both of you said that you start your staff meetings with some sort of safety report. And what's interesting, I'm not a safety professional, but I've been doing this now for 10 years. And whenever I hear a safety professional talk about safety, it's all about sweating the details. So talk a little bit about the topics that you'll address when you start your meetings.
Yeah, so we'll cover everything from weather, which is a pretty obvious one,
Yeah,
to
makes sense.
the incident, the risks that might be inherent in a particular job, to we've even talked about other contractors where there was an accident and we have details and we'll share exactly what happened so that you can learn from others.
Learn from other people's mistakes.
But then it's not only just about at work, it's about at home too. So the safety topic might be grilling season is coming up and how do you safely hook up your propane tank and check for bees underneath the grill if it's been sitting outside, and just simple things. But safety really is an all-encompassing topic that you have to make sure that you touch on both from a work perspective and your home and family perspective.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, that's another change that I've seen in the last 10 or 15 years to really get it into your personal behavior. So are you speeding when you're what are you doing at home when you're with a ladder or whatever? Are you wearing safety glasses? And just from a personal standpoint, when we started these trying to transfer safety from work to the home, I'm wearing my safety glasses, I have my ear protection, I've got my work boots when I'm mowing the lawn. And there was a kid next door that was out there, and I said, you know what, here's a pair of safety glasses. I'm really concerned about you because you never know what's going to happen on that. And that kid still has his safety glasses that he's wearing. So I think if you can make this thing a conversation and pointing out various things. OSHA is really very good as it relates to hazard identification. And one of the challenges is we can look at something, and a safety professional will come up with lots of different things because they're trained to do that. Other people may look at it and say, it looks fine, absolutely fine. And I think that's the awareness that these kinds of conversations on a business, on a personal level can bring is there's more awareness, there's more conversation, and therefore you have an opportunity to do something that will maintain a safe work environment or improve if there's a potential hazard in front of you.
Well, the being safe at work and then have that spill into the home is so important. I have a truck, so I'm driving down the freeway. I can see down, and almost everybody is messing with their phone. And just how distracted that is, how dangerous that is. And I've got a kid who's about ready to get his driver's license, and I emphasize to him, nothing's that important. Put the phone away. Don't touch it. So that certainly does resonate to me, and I think that's fantastic that you stress how to be safe at home as well. Let's talk about the last year. COVID-19 has presented all kinds of problems. We talk about safety. Obviously, this is an aspect of it. It's more on the health side. CDC has helped. OSHA has helped with guidelines. Frankly, the Safety Council has issued some guidelines as well. We were out there right away when the pandemic really began to rear its ugly head a little more than a year ago. So let's talk about the challenges of keeping people safe on the job site, keeping people healthy on the job site in a COVID-19 pandemic. So Kim, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so of course for us it's in the shop, in the field, and in the office. And so, of course we were very fortunate to be considered an essential business, and yet obviously the pandemic brought a whole different level of concern for our associates and our customers and our community. And so we followed the World Health Organization and the CDC recommendations. In fact, we even implemented mask wearing in the office before it was a mandate.
Good for you.
And we really it was a crazy time. That March, April timeframe when nobody knew much about the virus. We quickly sent people home, those that could work from home, and we had to gear up to have them be able to do that virtually. We implemented the mask policy. We did social distancing, shut down our cafeteria so we didn't have the food and the coffee or any of those sorts of things. Lot of communication. I mean, our leadership team came together immediately, and we had daily conversations, an hour or two at the end of every single day for weeks, to say what's happening, what do we need to do, what have we learned, what sorts of things can we educate ourselves that are from the CDC and the WHO and WMC or whomever. And so it was a scary time, but leadership really took the ball and ran with it, and we said, here are the things we're going to do. We have to social distance. You can't use the conference rooms. We're going to have people work from home. Call customers. I mean, initially we had to call our customers to say, hey, Mr. Customer, Mrs. Customer, we're coming to your site. Is that okay? And if we can, are we allowed in your building, or can we only work up on the roof? And so it really was a different time and we had to take safety to just a different level because it was so different for everybody.
Tom, again, a little bit different for you in construction. A lot of people outdoors, but you have people in your trailers and indoor spaces, enclosed spaces. Talk about how you've addressed COVID-19.
Well, the first thing that we did is we put together a task force made up of our leadership group and safety folks, and we were getting information from all these different states and what would be the protocols, what would be accepted in each state. And that was really, really helpful to kind of and get to some of the key elements of the preventing the spread, various protocols that you'd have in offices or trailers. And like Kim, the CDC was helpful in setting up. We were able to continue to work with permission of customers. And then early on, there were a number of them that said, we don't want you here. And we were very fearful that this was going to be something that would be impacting, and it did impact the business. But people really took this to heart. They were very afraid of what was going to happen. While masks were something that people didn't want to do and were uncomfortable, we were looking for different situations with face shields, different types of masks. And I think that just brought to the fore the importance of safety and personal safety when it's a pandemic going on. You've got a virus that you don't really know much about. And I think that everybody was really mindful and focused on, let's make sure that we are not going to infect our families, our coworkers. We'll follow these things that are being set in front of us. Our offices were shut down. We still have a number of offices that are really not up to full speed, and people are working from home. But I would say there was a small benefit, maybe I'll say a large benefit from the whole COVID thing, is that our jobs overall, I think, were safer because of this focus that people had. Maybe not on the work that they were doing, but this idea of we're in a pandemic. There's certain things we need to do. And oh, by the way, I'm also going to be working. So let's take that same type of focus on the tasks that I'm doing today, because I have this opportunity to work when others don't. And let's do it safely. And our safety numbers were really strong last year, which is encouraging.
Well, I think the business community has not got the credit that it deserves for keeping people safe on the job, because I do think that you're not an outlier on what you did.
Yeah.
The business community took this very seriously. Obviously they were incentivized from the standpoint that they wanted to stay in
Sure.
business, and they wanted to show customers that they were safe and responsible.
But let's also give the workforce the credit too, because they took it
absolutely.
seriously. And that's one of these generational changes that I think are occurring in our industry, at least in distant past. A lot of construction people were the supermen and women, and nothing's going to hurt me. And I think now we've got a different generation that is much more sensitive and understanding that there are potential for accidents, and I want to not only keep myself safe, but my coworkers safe as well. So I think this certainly helps to have that message coming down from the company and the businesses that you're in, but having that support coming from the people in the trenches that are saying, this is important, and we're going to make sure that we can continue to work safely.
Yeah, and I think, to your point, Tom, it was really important that we provided the support and the PPE and, trying to find masks
Right.
and sanitation, the
Right.
cleaners, and
Yeah.
it was a crazy time. But yet our people rallied, and they were there to answer to the customers, and they
Yep.
worked really hard every single day to go out and make sure that those other manufacturers and food processors and healthcare systems were up and running, because they're all essential, right? We need to eat, we need to take care of our health of other people.
Yeah.
And it was our associates that were out there every single day making sure that we were taking care of other businesses, and it was amazing.
And then they would bring back some examples of what so-and-so was doing, and would this be something that would be helpful for us? And we would, again, bring that to our group, and they'd access that, see if that would be something that would be done. So I think we were getting lots of information, but again, we have to kind of cut through all of the noise, and what are the things that are really essential, what are the things that are really working, what are some protocols that we can do, and then continue to communicate what are you going to be doing, how are you going to be able to do that given all of the restrictions now that you have, because in our line of work there are lots of people working in a small area that you may not be able to social distance. So a lot of creativity, some good thinking, and I hope that we can bring some of those practices now once COVID is behind us, because we learned some very, very positive things from this.
If I could say one more thing, too,
Please.
communication was a really, really critical during this whole COVID time. I mean, it's important always, but the daily communications initially, and just here's what we've learned, and here's what we need to do, and distance 6 feet apart, and we got a lot of really good feedback. In fact, during this time, when we had everybody that could work from home go home, I actually personally called many of them to just check on them. How are you doing? Do you have the resources you need? Remember, there is EAP. Mental health concerns were really high, because there was there was so much unknown, and it's scary.
It is scary.
And so we just wanted to make sure that our people were feeling safe, that they were secure, that they had everything that they needed. And so that ongoing communication was absolutely critical throughout this.
Well, Kim, that's a great point, talking about the mental health aspect, because without question, this has been an extraordinary year, and it's been stressful on people and families. And we were talking before we went on air about kids and the impact of not being with their friends and not being able to interact with their friends in sporting events and all the other types of things. And you both mentioned how businesses and then employees stepped up. So what I'm hearing is that this was generally accepted from your workforce, that there were no people who were, there were a lot of questions about whether or not masks were necessary at first, and originally we had Anthony Fauci say no masks, and then later now wear the mask. Did people roll with that? And I will give, I think CDC and OSHA have been relatively consistent throughout this pandemic on what their guidance has been. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I think we've been following their guidelines, and I think it was pretty clear these are the restrictions, these are the rules of the game going forward. If we don't follow these things, the potential for us not to be able to perform our work, not to serve our customers, is certainly in place. And I don't think that there was, I mean, I'm sure in their heads there were some thoughts about what the heck am I doing? This is rather uncomfortable, but I think people have adapted because these are the rules, and we're going to continue to enforce these, and that's that. Those that's the rule.
Yeah, the resiliency and the adaptability, and I think you said it, were amazing. You know, if you think about it, I don't know if you've ever worked from home. I have.
I did for a short period.
Right? We've had associates that have been working from home for months, right? And so we would keep talking about this phased approach, and it would depend on COVID numbers and the statistics out there and watching the trends as to what we would do next.
Yeah.
And yet people adapted. They were resilient, and they always had their safety, the customer safety, and taking care of the job in mind. And it was an incredible group of people. I actually feel, and I don't know how you feel about this, Tom, but I feel like we're even an even stronger organization as a result of the collaboration of everybody coming together and you know, getting aligned with what are the things that you have to do and how do you do it, and I'm here to watch out for your back and make sure that we collectively do this right.
Yeah.
And so it was, you know, there you can always find what I call bright shiny spots in a dark place, and there were a lot of really good things that came out of it. A misfortune, you know, an unfortunate situation.
I think of the confusion that happened though, because people would hear, well, in Michigan they're doing this, or California, well, aren't we going to be? And said, no, this is what we are required to do here.
Mm-hmm.
We will take that particular protocol under advisement, but we're not required to do that. And if like there are some benefit to add some other protocol, we'll do that. But right, again, communication was, because there's just so many different voices at the time. We had to be very clear with our people of what we were expecting of them.
Resiliency, I think, is the right word. I like that word. I think that says it all very, very nicely. So we're coming, hopefully, knock on wood, to the end of COVID-19 with the vaccines that are out there, and you know, approaching herd immunity at some point, maybe as soon as June. You know, the president has talked about the 4th of July being a milestone, but also saying that we still need to be diligent and we need to be safe. So what's your sense? How are you going to go about, say, getting back to as close to normal pre-COVID as possible on your work sites, in your facility? Is that going to be a conversation that you'll have with your employees and the task force that you had at Bolt? Mm-hmm. How is that going to work? Tom, you want to start?
Yeah, well, again, depending on the state where the office is, there are certain protocols that we've been following, and we've been having soft openings, and we've never required anybody, if they don't feel safe, to come back to the offices. And the same thing is true on a work site as well. If somebody, for whatever reason, doesn't feel safe, I think this daily check-in of checking in and going through the checklist is certainly something that is helpful, and it keeps that in people's minds that we're still in a situation that could change. I mean, we're seeing in Europe right now another spike in some of these cases, so we're certainly not clear. But as you said, as the vaccine comes on and more people feel safe, I think we'll act accordingly. But I think there are going to be some residual impacts to our businesses because of this. And I hope as we pull the positive things, pulling together, let's be resilient, let's communicate, let's learn together, because there's lots of stuff that we can improve upon. And you know, the idea is, whether it's a COVID or some other situation on your work site, we want you to work safe and be able to come back to our projects, you know, healthy and strong and ready to do a good day's work.
Yeah, so as we come out of this, our associates have been so accustomed to this whole phased approach, and so I know everybody, including us, are looking forward to not having to wear the masks. We don't know what that all means,
Right, or when.
right? So, we continue to just communicate that stay safe by following the CDC recommendations, and we'll continue to keep you informed as we learn more about what is recommended by the medical professions to give us guidance. So, it's an ongoing conversation, and it's been amazing how you've shifted the conversations. Back in March of 2020, it was about, I think you had said it earlier, safety on the job, which has continued, but then you have this whole other conversation now that it has been happening daily, and it's just a different world.
And it looks like we're going to be in these the COVID protocol, for quite some time, because OSHA's probably going to be issuing an emergency rule requiring businesses to maintain masking for the foreseeable future. And we'll have to see whether or not there's a formal declaration from CDC or some authority, public health authority, that we're now out of the pandemic. But that's probably not going to happen anytime soon. So I think we're going to have to prepare for status quo. Again, you mentioned resiliency. I think we're also going to have to be very nimble, and I think the businesses have been very nimble throughout this crisis. So let's get back to talking more about just general safety culture. You're both CEOs. You're tenured CEOs. You've been doing this a long time. You have best-in-class safety operations. Let's have you give advice to a new CEO who he or she just got the promotion, is taking over, has a high-risk workforce. What does he or she need to know in order to make sure that they're following the best guidelines possible to keep people safe at work, and certainly then at home as well? So Kim, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so I think it's really important to engage with your workforce and truly understand what are the inherent risks that they're up against on a daily basis in their everyday jobs. And so first gain an understanding, and then make a plan, right? What are the expectations? What is it that you're going to try to accomplish as a collective group? Set metrics, right? How do you hold yourself accountable and truly understand how you're progressing? And so set those metrics, display them, communicate them, that sort of thing. Do a splash. If you're newer to that position, communicate, what that plan is, but then create excitement around how you're going to rally behind some objective related to safety. And then check in, right? How are you doing against those metrics? But at the end of the day, everybody has to understand that their safety and health is of the utmost importance. And so there isn't any exception to that.
Tom?
No disagreements. One thing that I would just add is the first day on the job, I would suggest that the CEO say, my goal is to win the Wisconsin Safety Council
There you go.
award. And I'm not being smart aleckly about that.
You're okay. That's okay with me.
But when we were fortunate to win it the very first time, I turned to our staff and I said, this isn't going to be the last time. This is important, and let's continue to improve and continue to get better. So it's impossible to talk to our 2,000 employees and get really in their heads, but we have to delegate that to our leadership, and I think that they've done an excellent job. One small thing that I've done is that I interview after about about 90 days all of our new salary employees. And it isn't the first question, but it's the second question that I ask is, tell me about the safety culture. These are people coming from the outside. They might have been interns with us and are now full-time, but they're coming from many different companies, different experiences. And I ask them, tell me about the safety culture that you've experienced. And that's been a wonderful way. Very few of them say it, which is good, because they're saying, you're in safety is not something that you've always, you've achieved something. It's every day, every hour, every minute that you have to work on that. But I hope that that sort of sets a tone that the second question out of the mouth of the CEO is, tell me about safety and what you experience. And some of these people are not as connected to the field just because of their work responsibilities. We talk about that in their personal lives and ways in which they can impact that. So I've gotten lots of different ideas on that, which I've shared with our staff. And again, it's communicate on a constant basis, consistently, and at all levels of the organization. So for this new CEO, I would say set a goal and communicate that and be upfront with that as a opportunity. And there are plenty of stories in business where the performance of companies have really improved because safety became a major focus of the leadership, not just the CEO, but the entire group. And when you get that, then you've got some magic cascade, but it still has to, it's the individual worker that's right now is making a choice. Am I going to do this the right way, or am I going to do it the quick way because I want to get on with this stuff? And that is, I think, a constant fear that we all have, is that how will they make that choice? Are they going to make that right choice? And hopefully they're feeling this is something that'll benefit me, that'll benefit my company, because we want to work there again.
So that's the advice from the C-suite to the C-suite. Both of you have dedicated safety professionals who oversee safety in your operations. Same question, but to that safety professional. Let's say that person was just hired this week. So what are you going to say to them? What advice would you give to them? And I appreciate the shout out on the safety award, but I do think that there's a tremendous amount of pride in that, and it's something. It's a goal to strive for. But what else would you recommend? And Tom, we'll start with you.
So for a new person in safety, I guess the word that I would just say is you care about the people that are working in your group, your operating group, and it's important that you communicate with them that caring. And we've got a number of different things. One of them is a safety task analysis. One is a continuous safety improvement card, and we're asking people to communicate with us various things. If you're a safety professional and we're asking our people to respond to things that they're seeing, make sure that individual has been communicated with, that we heard this, we've taken care of it, or we haven't taken care of it, because that's the opportunity to learn and grow. So as much personal connection that you can have with your field people through supervision, through safety professionals, through project management, whatever the deal is demonstrate your commitment in a meaningful way.
Yeah, I think that individuals have to be seen as individuals and a holistic person. And so if you're trying to educate others at a management level, really don't just think about the financial aspect of it, but think about the person and the social, emotional, physical aspects of the risk that those, having an injury brings to the job. From a leadership perspective too, I think it's really important to walk the walk and talk the talk. Mm-hmm. And so what we implemented a number of years ago are what we call leadership safety engagement walks. And so the expectation, I have an expectation of our leadership team that they will make site visits, whether they're out on construction sites or out in our shop, and engage with our associates. And we're not there to educate them on safety necessarily, because they get all of the OSHA 80-hour, 30-hour, whatever trainings, right? But it's all about having a conversation. Do you have everything that you need? What is your biggest risk today? Talk about the job. Let's go meet the customer, that sort of thing. But you're there, you're present, you're visible, and you're showing that you care, really. You know, the whole cliche about people don't care how much until you show them how much you care, right? And so it's really important to engage and to be visible and to think of the person holistically and not just a statistic or a number.
We're almost out of time. One last question. So again, you're talking to Wisconsin safety professionals at our annual conference. What's the one thing that you'd like to leave them with as we close out this session? Tom, we'll start with you.
I guess the first thing that comes to my mind is make safety a competitive advantage. We are in a world where talent is not in great supply. And if you can create a culture and you can create opportunities for a worker to feel safe so they can fulfill all the dreams and expectations that they would have for a career, turn safety into a competitive advantage for your company.
Great.
I think that's a great idea. I think the other thing that comes to mind is safety is just not a one and done. It's a 24/7 topic and important. The importance of it to make sure that you're constantly, you can't just talk about it and then expect that it'll happen. You'll see this sort of thing in your results, but it's a 24/7 conversation. You constantly have to stay in front of it, talk to people about it, educate them, answer questions, be there as a resource for them so that safety is top of mind because really lives depend on it.
Well, we are out of time. I want to thank you both for sitting down with us. I congratulate you on being in the Hall of Fame and for your multiple corporate safety awards that you've won. I hope to be back delivering one to Kim and to Tom at some point in the very near future. Tom Bolt, the Bolt Company, Kim Bassett, Bassett Mechanical, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this important conversation. I hope you enjoyed it. I want to thank our sponsor, Mercury Marine, for making this possible. And now let's send it back to Aaron.